also see. It can see things like colors. You can learn. AI can learn. And this is called machine learning. You can listen and speak, and AI can listen and speak. Does anyone have like a Google Home or an Alexa? You have an Alexa at home, right? Right? Or anyone have some AI on their wrist right now? You can lift it and you can say something like, I'm not going to because I'll have an alarm go off in the middle of the service. Yeah, what do you have? Google Home, exactly. You can read and write, and AI can read and write. And this is called natural language processing. You can see patterns, and AI can see patterns. This is called pattern recognition. You can move. AI can also move. Does anyone have one of those robot vacuums in their houses? Yes. It doesn't always move really well. It gets stuck on some really ridiculous things. Just like you, AI is getting smarter. Yeah. Ah, yes, AI can be used to suck up buggies. And especially this time of year, we are awfully grateful to have that. So just like you, AI is getting smarter. And AI can help us get where we want to go. We will work together to make a better world. Now, as far as I know, AI was not used to create this story, but that's probably what the robots would want us to believe.
And now, would you please rise in body or spirit? For hymn number 311, Let It Be a Dance.
Let it be a dance, let it be a dance. and round we go again. Let it be a dance.
Today's reading is called In Praise of Scribes by Johanna Tritemius. Brothers, nobody should say or think, what is the sense of bothering with copying by hand when the art of printing has brought to light so many important books? A huge library can be acquired inexpensively. I tell you, the man who wants this only tries to conceal his own laziness. All of you know the difference between a manuscript and printed book. The word written on parchment will last 1,000 years. The printed word is on paper. How long will that last? The most you can expect a book of paper to survive is 200 years. Yet there are many who think they can entrust their works to paper. Only time will tell. Written in 1492.
robots are coming. The robots are coming. They are going to take jobs. They are going to ruin art and music. They're going to change civilization as we know it. These sentiments are not from right now. Those sentiments are from 1929. And the robots that they were referring to were recorded music. Specifically, the recorded music that was going to be played in theater houses and movie houses, right? Because up until that time, you had, of course, silent movies. And with silent movies, they hadn't yet found a technology that was inexpensive enough that they could synchronize film and sound together. So you had these silent movies, and many of the movie theaters had giant orchestra pits with full orchestras, and they are the ones who provided all of the soundtrack, if you will, because as we know, and as was just demonstrated, music affects our emotions, right? It gives us a full experience. But in 1927, the jazz singer came out, and with it came the synchronization of sound and film. So what was this going to mean for all of those musicians who had been playing in the movie houses? So first thing that happened was there was a music union, and it was called the American Federation of Music. Is it still called that? I don't know. Anyway, and so they set to work. They spent $500,000, which was a lot of money in 1929, 1930. For some of us, it's still a lot of money. And they put out advertisements in newspapers coast to coast, warning that the robots were coming, warning of this menace. And in most of their ads, they had, as you see here, some type of a cartoon of a threatening robot who was coming at you. And on these ads, they also, down at the bottom, they had a little coupon that you could send in stating that you wanted to be part of the Defense of Music League, which I think we need to make t-shirts. I think that doesn't that sound like something you want to be a part of? The Defense of Music League. Because, again, this was the music union, and they knew that what this was going to mean was all of those musicians who had been hired to be in the theaters, you know, the theater owners were not going to pay for an orchestra when they had the talkies. And the talkies had both recorded dialogue and recorded music. Now, the newspapers helped foment this big war. If you look through newspaper archives and you search on the term canned music, you will find hundreds and hundreds of articles talking about this. Like, this was one of the big culture wars of that time. And, you know, as we've talked about, you have to say, okay, why would they do this? What's the motive? Well, number one, for the newspapers, they were getting a lot of ad revenue from the musicians union, but also this was being set up as a war, as a battle, and conflict sells newspapers. Conflict still today, it's what makes us click on certain stories. And so the musicians union, they set it up as, you know, if you are smart in a political sense, you are going to be the one who frames an argument. You're going to be the one that chooses the terms that are used. We are going through this right now with so much of the anti-LGBTQIA+ legislation is the other side has used really horrible, scary terms. So, much lighter sort of thing, this was set up as canned music versus living music. Like, not even live music. It was canned music versus living music. And the president of the music union, Joseph Weber, here's one of his quotes, that talking picture music is embalmed when it's recorded. We have become a nation of listeners instead of music producers. We're facing a crisis affecting the cultural advancement of our country. So first the newspapers got involved, and then of course the politicians get involved, right? Because, you know, history has shown that for politicians, and nothing against all politicians. There are some very good politicians, some that are definitely friends of this congregation. But for politicians, having a manufactured crisis, a conflict that doesn't really affect them, usually benefits them. And so they got into it, and so cities across the country started having Living Music Day. This was a day where there would be no recorded music in their town. Instead, it would be all living music, and they made a big deal out of it. They would have these proclamations. They would have, and it was, I mean, it was kind of like South by Southwest, except that the locals didn't stay home. But it was a big thing, and it had a financial benefit, because you did have out-of-towners who would come in to see all of this different live or living music. They needed hotels, they needed restaurants, and then, as you'll see in some of this with the ads, all of the businesses in the town, this was like their Memorial Day sale or 4th of July sale. They would have living music sales. Even if what they did had absolutely nothing to do with music, they were putting it on sale. So this was the stuff that was brewing. Again, this is like, 1930 by this time, trying to fight this technology that is coming in. And it wasn't just the music in the movie houses. It was also, any kind of recorded music. And if it seems strange to us in this time that in those ads that they would use pictures of robots, right? Because this was 1930. This was not computer-generated music. This was recordings of human musicians. What it came down to was really pragmatic. The phonograph, which so many people coveted at that time, it's hard to take a cartoon of a phonograph and make it look threatening, right? I don't even know. And this was even before they added the dog, right? How would you even do that? And so they settled on robots. And so what that did is that created a trope that still exists today, right? The robots are coming to get your jobs. Robots are scary. This is where that really began, that whole trope. There were also some other protests against this new technology. My favorite one, if I can get through this without cracking up, my favorite one was the Great Garlic Sandwich Protest, where a bunch of musicians from the Musicians Union showed up to theaters where these theater owners were bringing in the talkies, and they bought their tickets, they sat down, and they unwrapped their sandwiches, their garlic sandwiches, and started eating them with gusto. Of course, the other theater goers, were moving away from them and probably complaining to the management. And I think in this article, yes, one of the theater managers says, "We're working our ventilators full blast, but it's a tough job. Unless they leave when our midnight show is over, we will have to consult the authorities." I don't know what happened next, but I don't think that they were successful. And that's the thing, is ultimately none of this was successful, because you had the talkies, and even the people who were getting, the non-musicians who were going to the Living Music Days and sending in their coupons, they were still wanting the talkies. They were still wanting to get a phonograph. They were still wanting to have recorded music. There is this human impulse where whenever we get new technology, it's well documented, this whole concept of you have the early adopters through the late adopters. I mean, my parents, I think that it was not until like the 1990s before they finally got a microwave. But then there are also the people kind of outside of all of that who so actively resist the new technology, they do not believe that it should exist at all. And this was not the first time for this to happen. In fact, that president of the music union had already dealt in 1924, unsuccessfully, he had dealt with another issue. He said, radio has created a problem which at the present time only affects a limited number of locals, but which will undoubtedly grow in proportion and must be met. And to his credit, like, he was the head of a labor union. That's what the head of a labor union is supposed to do. You are supposed to see the threats that are coming to your members and see if there is anything that you can do about them. However, the canned music versus living music crisis was completely unsuccessful. I saw one historian who said, it might have been better if he had taken that $500,000 and simply given $100 to the 5,000 members of the union. And it had been going on even before the radio, or right about that same time when the silent movies first came in. You had people who were pushing back against this new technology, who were saying, but what about our live theaters? What is going to happen to them? And specifically, we always worry, and it's not a bad thing, we always worry about jobs. What is this going to do to jobs? And then it was about the playwrights. What is going to happen to the playwrights? Because silent movies didn't require a whole lot of writing, right? There wasn't much dialogue in those. And as you heard in our reading, this resistance, this fight against technological advancement goes back way farther. So the person that Lindy was reading the thing from him, Johannes Tritanius, he warned about the printing press and what it was going to mean, that it was going to put thousands of monks out of work. Because at that time, the monks were often the ones who were the scribes who would hand copy any written materials. What were going to happen to all of those monks now that you had the printing press?
Thoughts and prayers.
So here we are today, and you've probably been hearing some things about some new technology, right? AI, artificial intelligence. Now the thing is, artificial intelligence has been around in some form since about the 1940s, but now it is starting to grow, and more importantly, it is now getting the attention of all of us, not just the programmers, not just the scientists. We have access to it now too. In fact, this, and specifically generative AI, because AI is like, it's a huge world of things. I will say some of the smartest people I know are so excited about what has happened in the last couple of years. And they're saying this is going to cause as big a change, but they're They're pretty much for it. This is going to cause as big a change in our world as the internet did, because they have a way of kind of seeing the whole big picture. I know that, just one very concrete example of this is if you are diagnosed with some kind of a serious disease, let's say an unusual kind of cancer, then what will usually happen is a hospital will convene a board of several different scientists, several different doctors, and they will, between all of them, they will use their different kinds of specific knowledge to come to a conclusion about what is your best course of treatment. So now, just imagine this with AI, that AI can have the access to all of the latest research. And when you combine that with all of the research that we are doing and the learnings that we're doing with DNA and with pathology, they're going to be able to combine all of that so that you could have a very customized treatment plan. I mean, the ideas of all the things that are going to happen with AI, I think even for those who are spending their lives in it, right now, it's even beyond us to fully understand all of that. And that's very scary, right? We get scared when we can't fully understand things. So this thing of what is called generative AI, that's probably what you've been hearing a lot of lately because we now have access to it. Has anyone used one of the AI image generators or Chat GPT, right? They're with different kind of effects. During this past year, if you have enjoyed any of the art that has been used on our cover slides, it's because I've been messing around with DALL-E, with, as you can tell, different amounts of success and failure. It doesn't know Unitarian Universalism very well, and it doesn't do a really great job with the flaming chalice, as you can tell. But it will learn. It will learn. It will get there. Now, are there issues? Absolutely. And I do think that we need to look at those issues, but also look, as they should have done like in the 1930s or back in 1492, look at the people who are pushing the scary narratives. Is there a benefit to them? For instance, that guy back in 1492, total hypocrite. He was saying all of that, and at the same time, he was building up his own library of printed books, including some of his own writings in printed books. There's some good analysis, especially because the newspapers are always they're going to grab the scary headlines, the scary statements. And so when you see things, like about Warren Buffett is warning that this thing is coming out, okay, look closer. And this is what the analysts who are not trying to sell newspapers are telling us, is look at when did someone say this, what was the context. For instance, Warren Buffett, when he made that fairly hyperbolic statement, he was doing it at a meeting of his shareholders where he was talking about the AI that they were going to use. When you build something up, you are also presenting this narrative of this is something so big, you should invest in it, right? And we are the ones who know all about it. Trust us. Again, I'm not saying that there's not some things that we should look at, but also consider the full picture of this. Now, one thing that we absolutely need to look at is the issue of copyright. And there are people who are doing that, people who are studying this and analyzing how the AI is using things, because the way AI works is it gathers all the knowledge, which means it gathers all the art, all the writings, all the music that is already out there. The thing is, this has been the history of technology and humanity. Things are created, and then you have to do correctives. Hopefully, we now know more, including we know more about the rights of those who are marginalized, the rights of those who often have been the most stepped over. You can think of it right back in the 1950s, when we didn't have the copyright protections that we did for musicians, and so you would have a black musician who would have a song, and then Elvis would pick it up, right, and make it his. And we learned from that, and we adjusted, and we made laws to deal with that. And I think that that's the same thing we're going to have to do right now. Many of us remember Napster. Anyone here of an age that you remember Napster? Okay, for those of you who either are too young or, I'm not going to say too old, but you weren't doing Napster. Napster, that was like, what, the 90s? Yeah. And it was because we now had the internet where we could share files. And so Napster was a vehicle where all of us could take our CDs and load them into the computer and upload them. And so then, Tracy could come and download a song that I had uploaded, and it was all free. And of course, nothing was going to the musicians, and so there were lawsuits, and we stopped that. And so now we have other vehicles. I will be the first to tell you, things like Spotify, Talk to Any Musician, they don't get a whole lot from that, but this is what we do. We adjust, we create laws, and sometimes we create technology to deal with all of these things. But to fight the technology itself, it's a losing battle. I mean, I really thought about it. I did research. I cannot find a situation where we have had some type of technology that would make things better for people, where we were able to just quash it down. There have been times when they tried. The electric car is a perfect example of that, but then ultimately, right, we have the power to get electric cars now. Some of the arguments that we are hearing, it's so interesting to me. It so parallels what they were saying in the 1930s. And to have concern for our artists is absolutely the right thing to do. But I think we have to do it in the framework of, okay, this is going to happen, so how can we support our artists? And of course, for musicians, it meant that they now had a way that they could record their music and someone in Europe could hear what they were creating. But Joseph Weber, back in 1930, said, "Machinery is performing a great service for mankind, but a machine is not an artist. The high purpose of machinery is to save people from ignoble and soulless labor, not to perform tasks that are only well done by the hands and hearts of gifted musicians." I've seen a Facebook meme that's very similar to this about AI, about why are we creating these things that are going to create art? Why don't we do something that'll help us with our regular jobs so we can create the art? And philosophically, I do think that's something we need to look at. But ultimately, I'm going to go back to 1930. This is an article in the Fort Worth Star-Telegram. Walter Damrosch, the famous conductor who has done much toward popularizing good music, had his words to say. "History," he says, "proves the futility of opposition to technical improvements and labor-saving and time-saving devices. Canned music and broadcasting have come to stay. And instead of waging a hopeless battle, the musicians displaced by those instrumentalities would be better to turn their attention to the organization of orchestras of various sizes in the smaller cities and towns." This seems sound advice. The unemployed musicians have the sympathy of the public, but the public will not give up the radio or the phonograph, nor will it give up motion pictures, because the music which attends the showing of the films is canned. Indeed, no such renunciation is necessary. The demand for living music is being stimulated, not decreased, by the mechanical devices for this popularization of music. Constructive work should take the place of negative and destructive campaigns. that manifestly hold no promise of success. And as Douglas Adams said, anything that is in the world when you're born is normal and ordinary and is just a natural part of the way the world works. Anything that's invented when you're 15 and 35 is new and exciting and revolutionary, and you can probably get a career in it. Anything invented after you're 35 is against the natural order of things. So may we resist that. And now I invite you to join me in a time of a guided reflection, and this will be in word and in silence. Take a moment to find a comfortable position, allowing your body to relax and your mind to settle. Close your eyes and take a deep breath, feeling the air fill your lungs, and then gently release. In this state of calmness, let us reflect on the beauty of being open to wonder, including when it comes in new technology. Imagine a world where our minds are not confined by preconceived notions or the limitations of what we already know. Being open to wonder is like opening a door to infinite possibilities, where curiosity guides us to explore the uncharted territories of knowledge and experience. As we embrace new technology, we allow ourselves to witness the marvels of human ingenuity. It is through this openness that we can appreciate the intricate ways in which technology shapes our lives, transforming the mundane into the extraordinary. In the presence of new technology, we have the opportunity to witness the fusion of human creativity and scientific progress. Let's approach these advancements with a sense of awe and gratitude, recognizing the potential they hold to improve our lives and deepen our understanding of the world. By remaining open, we allow ourselves to be enriched by the wonders that emerge from the union of human imagination and technological innovation. As you slowly return to the present moment, carry with you the spirit of openness and wonder. Let it guide your interactions with technology, inviting you to embrace the unknown and seek the beauty in the ever-changing landscape of innovation. The path of discovery is paved with the willingness to explore and be open to new experiences. May your journey be filled with a sense of awe and appreciation for the wonders of technology that continue to unfold before you. And let us hold that for a moment together in stillness. Amen, and blessed be. I will not do this often, but that meditation was created by AI. Maybe I should be worried about my job.
We are the tradition, excuse me, we are the tradition of the Free Church. Our church and our community outreach are supported not from an outside source, but from within. Generosity, therefore, is one of the spiritual values we recognize as central to our personal and institutional well-being. We share what is offered every week with an organization that upholds our Unitarian Universalist values. This month, we're helping to empower the dream of Queer Empower Pride Conference and Festival. Now, you've heard of Joseph and the amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat. Well, here's James Dean in his amazing Technicolor shirt.
Thank you. We appreciate the donations that you all have given us towards our event and towards the things we're doing in our community. It's been a challenging week. It did my heart and soul good, though, to see our Reverend and members of this church at the Leander City Council meeting this past week in the midst of Akira Ross being talked about, in the midst of the young gay man who came out and was bullied and committed suicide in Liberty Hill. And then in the midst of the bullying that occurred right there at City Council by some of our fellow citizens. But then also some of the words of love and encouragement that was shared by some of you all and some of our fellow citizens. We appreciate that, and it does make a difference. And your donations to the Cedar Park and Leander Pride organizations and to the conference this year make a huge difference. I do want to ask you to put one thing on your calendar. This Thursday, Cedar Park City Council will be meeting at 7 p.m. We do not yet have word from Cedar Park Police or whichever district attorneys will be involved in making the hate crime murder of Akira Ross charged as a hate crime. That has not been done yet. And one of the few points of pressure we can put is to put pressure on the Cedar Park City Council to take action to hold that up. So if you are available Thursday at 7 p.m., we ask you to join us. We thank you for your donation. We thank you for your time. We look forward to seeing you at July 15th. Thank you very much.
May an offering be received in gratitude and love. So this is the time when Chris German, our DLFD, usually comes up and tells you all what's happening in RE. She's not here. Her stand-in is also not here, so bear with me. I'm going to read what's going on. So pre-K through kindergarten will be doing what they call Rainbow Connection, treating others the way that you want to be treated. And I don't know where they're going to meet. First through fifth grade, we'll meet in room 205, and they will be doing, Magic Summer, making seed balls. And I know that sounds cool. And then youth to adult, we're doing a really cool program, Carrie and it's called The Fifth Dimension from the Twilight Zone. And the first one was last week. We watch an episode. They're only like half an hour. And then The discussion is social justice based, and last week was the monsters are due on Maple Street. I'm not sure what the one is today. But that's it for some cool stuff going on after church. And I hope that you do one of those things.
And now, would you please rise as you are willing and able for our closing hymn, Love Will Guide Us. Ultimately, AI is another tool. I have an artist friend who already is being hired to use AI for companies that want some of his work. And so we're just going to learn how to use it, but hopefully love will guide us and a sense of justice. And I have heard some of the things our president and I were talking about. Okay, but aren't you afraid of, like our new robot overlords taking over? I don't know about y'all, but, some of the humans who have been taking over, I don't know, maybe that'd be a nice change. May you know joy beyond measure and distribute love extravagantly, ever assured that even on hard days, life is a blessing. Go in peace.
Let us say these words to each other. Stuart, will you extinguish the chalice, please? We extinguish this chalice flame, daring to carry forward the vision of this free faith, that freedom, reason, and justice will one day prevail in this nation and across the earth. And now as we depart, we extend and receive the gift of hospitality by taking the first 5 minutes to talk to someone whom we don't know yet well. May we all know the blessings of friendship and community.